Hello everyone. Today I wanted to talk about the debate that comes up once in a while. Who brings in more prison contraband? The visitors or the corrupt prison staff? Now remember, I said corrupt prison staff because we have civilian staff and uniform staff. Yes, we have a few bad apples in uniform that bring contraband in from time to time. We have some bad apples in the civilian staff as well that bring in contraband. So I'm combining prison staff as one here. Who brings in the more contraband? And visitors, I'm breaking down into a couple of categories, and we'll talk about it. I'm going to talk about prison staff, visitors at the visitation park, of course, but what about your other visitors that come to the prison? All your vendors and deliveries and newspaper people and people paid to drop off contraband outside of the prison perimeter and leave it at drop-off spots. So there's a lot of ways contraband comes in, and I did a little survey, and it appears that the survey that I put on LinkedIn and Facebook and a couple of other Twitter, it's mixed. There's going to be about 50% correctional officer staff on this survey because that's what I do, and that's what most of my friends are, and a lot of my friends have been in the business either on the street or behind the razor wire. But I'll put up the survey results at the end of this video, and the results, I'll go ahead and give it away up front before we start to discuss. Prison staff has the vote as bringing in the most contraband, and we'll talk about why we mean the most. Do visitors attempt just as many times? Yes, I believe they do, but they have smaller amounts that they can get in, especially through visitation at the visitation park, because of us, hopefully, pat searching them, searching their shoes, searching their clothes, shaking their bras, doing all those things we have to do, putting them through the metal detector, wanding them. You know, I'm hoping that that prevents large amounts from getting in. But there are ways visitors can get larger amounts into the prison. And that is by having an officer paid off in the visitation park. And unfortunately, I've had a few of those investigations over a 12-year period as an inspector, which came after my correctional officer time. And unfortunately, you get a dirty staff member that wants to make a fast buck, and they will jeopardize the safety and security of everyone by turning their head, overlooking a search, skipping a search to allow contraband to get in. That is not good. That is what we have to stop and take care of and fix. So let's talk about visitors first. You know, on my list here, visitors. We have family members, girlfriends, boyfriends, and friends. We have prison pen pal friends. We have fake friends that are only used for illegal activities, usually paid on the outside and to be a contact for a connection for contraband. We have newspaper delivery persons paid to drop off contraband concealed in newspapers. I had that at Charlotte Correctional Institution, where the Miami Herald was being dropped off outside, and the inmate orderly up at the administration building, they changed it after this. No orderlies could pick up the newspapers after this, but was picking up the newspapers, and he knew which one, what mark to look for. And the newspaper delivery person was not involved when their newspapers were wrapped and set up for the prison. Someone at the site who was getting everything together for delivery was putting drugs inside the newspaper. So that's another way other types of visitors to the prison can set up drugs. Food delivery personnel. Volunteer counselors. How many times have we had a counselor, a drug counselor, a mental health counselor, sneak in drugs for the inmates? Case after case I can quote. Now, I trust you believe me on that. And I don't have to go and pull up the cases, but I will if if anybody wants to challenge that. And I know the people that aren't real savvy with the prison that watch my channel because they're trying to find out what goes on in prison. They're going to say, counselors, drug counselors? No way. Well, yes, it happens. Here's another one for you. How about volunteer chaplains bringing in contraband for the inmates, okay? Hiding it in their sock, hiding it in their underwear, anywhere. Yes, that has happened as well, folks. How about volunteer teachers? Well, yeah, a lot of teachers have been caught bringing things in, for one reason or another. Getting manipulated by the inmates, false love, thinking they're in love with the inmate, lust for the inmate, whatever. And how about visiting attorneys? Well, I just did a video about 3-4 weeks back. If you want to watch that one, I think I did 6 or 7 different attorneys who not only brought contraband for the inmates, but sent the inmates money to their inmate accounts. And in return, we're getting oral sex during the private attorney-client inmate visits. Waste management personnel, delivery personnel in general, just all delivery personnel. Okay, they can get things in and larger amounts in because they're actually walking into areas of the prison where visitors, we bring them in through the control room, we do our job in searching thoroughly, and then we let them into the visitation part. So the visitors can bring in contraband for quick highs under their tongue. They get one hug, one quick kiss when they come in. They can pass that one pill to the inmate and he can be high during the visitation. They can carry the drugs in their body cavities and go to the restroom later on, slip them out. We can't search body cavities inside. And then they can bring the drugs out to the inmates. They can drop the drugs off in the bathroom trash cans, and then the inmate orderlies know to go pick up that trash and put a new trash bag in. And then later on, there's a plan to bring the drugs onto the compound. There's also places the visitors can hide. You can hide things in your ear. You can hide small pill in your ear. You can hide into the hair. The visitors can hide things in their hair. How far can we go in searching the hair? We can't stick our hands in there and rub it down. We can wand them. We can use the metal detector. We can look. We can tell them to take their own hands and run it through the hair. We can have them shake their hair, the females shake it, and I know some women wear extensions, some women wear wigs. Big problem there with the hair and contraband coming into the visitation part. Many different ways, as many ways as the visitor's imagination can take place, okay? But it's very hard to catch all contraband coming in. That's why we must always make sure we're shaking the bras, we're shaking the clothes, we're checking the pockets of the clothing, we're checking the visitor's shoes for hidden compartments. We are having them shake their own hair, okay? But we're limited with visitors. We can't have them do like the inmates when they come up to visitation. We can't do body cavity. We can't have them spread their cheeks. But there are some things we can do. We can have them, cough and do some other things if we suspect some things. And this is when the metal detector goes off and we can't find anything, or the wand goes off and we can't find anything. We can have the visitor agree and sign a form, at least here in Florida, to a more thorough search. And they strip down and they actually do a squat and cough type thing. Female with female, male with male. But they have to sign and approve that. Now, if they don't sign that form for a more thorough search, then they have to leave. They have to leave and they can't visit. And then a report goes in and, classification, and the assistant warden and the warden, they can decide if there's going to be any suspension for this visitor or not. Now, what do we have on the prison staff side that can bring contraband in if they go to the dark side, if they become corrupt? Okay? For all you folks out there, this is the minority. The majority of correctional officers are hardworking, honest people. These are the bad apples we want to get rid of. Well, prison staff that have brought drugs into the prisons, I've investigated every one of these categories at one time or another. Unfortunately, we've caught these people in these categories bringing contraband in. The minority, very small amount, the few bad apples. Keep that in mind. Correctional officers, medical staff, dental staff, librarian, drug counselors, mental health counselors, teachers, maintenance crew. Maintenance crew can get pretty tight with some of these inmates, unfortunately, because they're working with them every day. Working on the plumbing crew, working on the electric crew, working on the paint crew. You're with these inmates all day long. These maintenance crew members are civilians now. And they tend to get a little friendly sometimes with these inmates and forget they're inmates. Chaplain, I mentioned before, warden or assistant warden. Yes, documented cases. I just did a video a while back, and so did Tear Talk. Anthony Ganji did a video on this. An assistant warden was having an affair with an inmate, having a relationship with an inmate. And we've had a warden here in Florida bring contraband to inmates. Documented case, Charlotte Correctional Institution. I did the investigation. That's why I know it's documented. Yes, he's gone and not working in the prison system anymore. Support staff, clerical. Private food service employees. Boy, is that a big one. I don't know what it is, except they're paid minimum wage. They're really, a lot of them, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of them are just a cut above, barely, of the inmates. Listen, I've had cases, Hendry Correctional Institution, Florida, caught 2 at one time, investigating one and then caught the other one. We set up a sting with the Hendry County Sheriff's Office, and we caught 2 of them bringing contraband into the prison. But so many food service employees have gone out in handcuffs or busted on the street picking up the drugs for the inmates in a drug sting. It is unbelievable how many of these food service employees have sex and bring drugs to the inmates. Classification officers. Yes, unfortunately, we had one at Hillsborough Correctional Institution, Florida. Classification supervisor got involved with a female. How did we find out? A heads up female classification officer said something's wrong, told the assistant warden. The classification supervisor's taking this female's case over on his own. Now, the classification officers have all the case files, but this classification supervisor, he wanted to have this case file just for him. Well, good gosh, is that not a big red flag? And then the amount of time he spent in his office with this female inmate. This is when Hillsborough Correctional Institution went from male to female. Hey, red flag, great job for her reporting it. And then we investigated and we uncovered that he had outside connections with her, and he was talking to her about marriage and so forth, and all kinds of things. You know, don't let anything surprise you. Don't let anything surprise you, folks, in our prison world. Anybody that wants to go to the dark side and become corrupt, and yes, manipulation is a huge factor, but please, we know right from wrong, don't we? Okay? So, not all visitors bring in contraband. Let's make sure we realize that. Not all visitors are bad people. A lot of visitors are mothers, fathers, brothers, and sisters who care and don't understand what happened to their loved one who took the wrong avenue in life. They're just there to give support. But you do your job the same with all visitors. Rules are the same for everyone. We don't know which one is good, which one is bad, so we keep it on the straight and narrow and make everybody follow the rules. The other types of visitors are paid visitors that the inmates have contacts on the street. They'll drop off drugs either by throwing drugs over the fence line concealed in a tennis ball, or like at Polk Correctional Institution here in Florida. We had one that was country boy and was shooting arrows over the fence, not sharp arrows, just cheap little arrows over the fence, and practice arrows that hunters use, and shooting them over the fence with little bags tied to it with drugs. And the inmates knew as soon as the compound opened for rec, they'd run out there and grab their drugs. They also have people that are dropping off drugs in outside locations. We had another one at Polk Correctional Institution where the drugs were dropped off at a certain marked spot in the woodlines. The dog boy, as we call them here, who goes out, exercises the bloodhounds, runs the dogs, would go out. He would know where to pick the drugs up, and then he had dug a hole out in the woods and taken an igloo off of the Department of Transportation vehicles, buried the igloo in the woods, and put the drugs in there, and then he could sneak them in a little bit at a time. Captain Dwayne Kennedy and I, Dwayne Kennedy's been on some of my videos. He and I worked that case. He was at that time he was a lieutenant at the work camp, and I was a prison inspector, and we both worked the angles together, and we caught them. We took the dog boy out and had him show us, and we took a shovel. We took pictures of him digging the igloo out of the ground, and lo and behold, there's an igloo, and there's the drugs inside. So, all kinds of ways for contraband to be hidden and snuck in. What about delivery, folks? How about drugs hidden in PVC pipes, plumbing pipes that are delivered to the prison warehouse? Yes, I did that case over at Dade Correctional Institution down in Miami. And the people that were packing the PVC pipes to ship over to the prison had a bad apple in their crew putting the marijuana in there. And then the inmates that were unpacking and putting the supplies on the shelves and getting ready for the supplies to be taken in and used inside the prison, they knew there was drugs inside those PVC pipes, or CVC plumbing pipes. We got the whole group. We got the inmates. We got the inmates on the outside at the maintenance delivery building. We got the inmates on the inside. Now, we knew what company had shipped it, but we never were able to connect who packed the marijuana into the pipes. What about food delivery trucks where the driver may not be aware of it, but one loaf of bread, of all those loaves of bread being delivered, is marked in a certain way that only a food service inmate or a corrupt food service person knows about? When that delivery comes in, it's removed either by the inmate that knows about the loaf of bread or the corrupt food service person who sets that loaf of bread aside for the inmates to later sneak into the compound. It's already into the food service area. Now they just have to take it from there to the prison compound. Okay? And those are just a few ways. There are vendors and delivery people. They're visitors to the prison. They're visitors to the prison, and they are bringing in contraband. So, not all of them, again, remember, not all of them, again, are doing that. Okay. Who brings in the most prison contraband was a title. On my survey, people that answered, 76.47% said corrupt prison staff, the entire prison staff, and 14.71% said prison visitors, and 8.82% said other. Now, what do they mean by other? I don't know if they mean these vendors that I'm talking about, because see, they didn't have all this information I just gave you. I just put this survey out there for them to answer questions. So they could be talking, when I say other, about these vendors coming in or other methods of by drop-offs and so forth. But we do have 76.47% saying corrupt prison staff bring in the most. We're not talking about how many attempts. We're talking about the largest amounts. Now, here's another one. Inmates are always 100% involved in prison contraband introduction. Interesting answers here. I'll tell you my answer. 50% said false. 47.06 said true. Other 2.94%, so I don't know what they are meaning, because I didn't have a question. I should have put other explain. I didn't do that. But it's almost 50-50 on inmates are always involved in contraband introduction. But I'm going to tell you something. In my opinion, from my experience, inmates are always 100% involved in prison contraband. And when I answer that question, I tell people, well, who is the contraband for? People go, the inmates. Yes. These people aren't risking their careers and going to jail and being stupid and corrupt to bring contraband in the prison for their own use. They're bringing the contraband in the prison for the inmates to use. Why are they 100% always involved? Now, I'll give some people credit. Maybe they think I meant all inmates. No, the inmates are always, there is an inmate always involved 100% is what I'm asking. And that's true, because the inmate or an inmate is always at the other end going to receive that contraband from whoever the prison staff member is, civilian or uniform. And they're going to get those people paid, and they have contacts on the outside that are providing the drugs and paying these folks to bring the drugs in. So my answer would be 100% of the time, inmates are always involved in drug and weapons and all prison contraband introduction, because they are the ones who in the end receive the contraband. And that's my answer to that one. And then my other question was, is prison management doing enough to fight prison contraband issues? 88.24% said no. 8.82 said yes. 2.94 said other. I don't know if the other means legislature needs to get involved in helping, which they do. They need to get involved with giving us more money, giving pay raises to officers, and giving us more tools to search for contraband. I have said this before in other videos. There's a lot of prison management that don't like to admit that we have contraband problems. But I think it's much better when you have a warden or assistant warden who says, yes, every prison has contraband, and we're going to fight it, and we're going to find ways to fight it, and we're going to help our officers and provide them the tools they need to fight contraband, okay? And I've had one warden tell me one time when I said, I have an investigation, it looks like we've got some drugs coming in, we got a lot of people involved, staff members, people on the street, possibly, you know, some bigger drug people. And he said, we don't have that kind of problem here at this prison. When I was done with the case, I proved to him that he does have that kind of problem at the prison. And that's the same warden that I explained earlier in this video. He was at Hendry Correctional Institution at that time, who ended up going to Charlotte and who ended up getting messed up for giving inmates things they couldn't have. No, not drugs and weapons, but he was giving inmates steak dinners for doing a great job. He was bringing in pictures for them. He was bringing them over to the warden's house and letting them eat over there. You know, those kind of things. That's still contraband, folks. Still contraband. So no wonder he didn't think there was a problem in his prison. He didn't want us to be around there at all. He wanted to run things on his own. So we can't bury our head in the sand, and we need everybody's help, from the front line to our supervisors on the front line, to our middle management, to our upper management. Just wanted to throw a few things out there and give you a few ideas about my survey and the results of it, and tell me who you think brings in the most contraband and why. Thank you for watching. Gary York, True Prison Stories.